Hi, I'm Mary. I love embroidery and I'm here to talk to you about how a visit to a stately home directly inspires my contemporary embroidery. So, back in October, I went to the Harley Gallery at Welbeck Abbey. That's in Nottinghamshire. It's the home of the Dukes of Portland. It's not open, the house, but the gallery is. It's a lovely gallery with a great shop attached and a lovely cafe, and well worth a visit. I have limited mobility. You can see my walking stick there, and it was okay for me. I had to have a bit of a sit down and coffee and cake for a break, but it wasn't something that I couldn't do. It was just the right size. Welbeck Abbey, as I said, owned by the Dukes of Portland. They have links to the Cavendish families, etc., and the whole of Chatsworth and Bess of Hardwick, which you may well have heard of. But there are a good few stately homes in North Nottinghamshire. They're known as the Dukeries: Rufford, Welbeck, Clumber, really close together in Sherwood Forest. That's another video in another time, how that inspires me. Dukes of Portland own most of North London, North Central London, Portland Place, Regent's Park, etc. So that's all linking in here. But this exhibition was about predominantly Restoration England, so when Charles II came back to the throne, and there were some great portraits of women in amazing textile dresses with detailing from black work to gold work. Brilliant. But it was the silver that caught my eye. You see here, this is a print out of one of my photographs, so not that great, I'm afraid. The silver was a lot of Dutch silver. It was a lot of the fancy stuff that would go onto tables to show your status, and intricate details on it. And this candelabra is astonishing. I believe it's quite well known as one of the centerpieces of the collection, which was the centerpiece of the table. But it's gold, but it has such amazing details on, and such fun little things like little bugs. Can you see that? I would try and point out more, but as I said, my photography is not the best. There's little bugs creepy crawling. Now, if you were in one of these dinners that would take hours, literally hours, something really fun to look at, and obviously this was a way of displaying wealth, which was so important in those days. We just do it differently. It definitely wasn't quiet wealth back in those days. So this candelabra with the creepy crawlies and all the work around made me think of Stumpwork. Well, what's Stumpwork, I hear you say? Well, Stumpwork in its most simple definition is 3D embroidery. Not so much sculpture, because it tends to be attached to things, but it's raised work. It's raised, it comes out, it's a bit padded. So it was often at its height of its popularity around that time, so the second half of the 17th century, 1600s. And can you sort of see from here that it's bulging out? There's lots of people on it. It was often put on these caskets, these wooden boxes, which I guess it was something to do, something to show. What else did a well-to-do young lady do but her needlework, because their lives were so restricted? And speaking as someone who spends a lot of time housebound due to illness and finds embroidery keeps me occupied and keeps my mental health on an even keel, those women would have done it too, because they wouldn't have necessarily been doing the housework, they wouldn't necessarily been making clothes, but they'd be doing their needlework, which was one of those skills a fine, well-brought-up young lady should have. I would have done well in those times, except I would have been really, really frustrated, because it's not my scene, you know. I'm an engineer by profession, and by nature I wouldn't have done that well then, but I would have liked the needlework, and I still use that to help me cope with having quite a restricted life, but just for different reasons. Back to Stumpwork. Can you see how there's often a lot of people in it? This book, by the way, is it's a history book from the Royal School of Needlework, edited by Lanto Singe. I'm not sure how you say it. My name's Broddle, so I'm used to people saying it weird. I'm not going to say anything about weird names. But I have a few of his books and they're really interesting. A lot of it would be biblical allegory. So this is you know, you're going to have your men and your women. You've probably got pear trees, apple trees in there. There'd be biblical allegory. There would be the language of flowers, which was big in Victorian, Edwardian times, but still meant a lot then. There was a lot of symbolism. Many people couldn't read or write, but they understood the symbolism of different motifs on embroidery, be it on caskets, but often on clothes that showed your allegiances, it showed your values. But can you see? There are little bugs. There's a caterpillar. There's a snail. There's a moth. I think we've got a ladybird. That was really common in all of this. You might think this is a bit higgledy-piggledy. But again, we've got birds, we've got butterflies, we've got snails. It was all very common in this form of stump work. So I saw this candelabra with the creepy crawlies. It made me think of stump work with the creepy crawlies. And then I thought, maybe I can do some creepy crawlies. I fancy taking my beloved crawl wool and stitching snails and caterpillars and getting, you know, those fluffy caterpillars. That's what I want to do. But I want to show you this also. It's a pattern book, a Schola House for the Needle. It's a pattern book from the 1630s that was reproduced. I must have had this about 15, 20 years now, hence all the tabs and stickers in it because I've used it lots. And this is where a lot of people would get their embroidery from, their embroidery patterns, their starting points. Still like those carbon transfers your granny had, still like we get now when we print the PDFs off online and we trace them. It's not cheating, they've always done it, always. So if they were doing this 400 years ago, it's fine to do it now. But what I want to show you here is how these patterns had the creepy crawlies in. Look at those snails. There's a deer as well. There's really interesting. There's no sort of groupness to this. They've just used the space up. So lots and lots of flowers. And this is what I wanted to show you. Look at this one. There's a turkey. That would have shown how modern and up to date you were and how aware of what was going on in the world, because the British settlements or the English settlements in like Virginia and Jamestown and all of that over in America, I guess Jamestown would have come after Charles, but Carolina, all of that would have happened around that time, and turkeys in North America would have been not discovered, but the news of them would have been coming to England, and so it's been included in these pattern books. But there's your bugs. It's a peacock, we've got a ladybird again, and look at that bat, that face. You'd see that on a kid's drawing now. That is so contemporary, that bat, even though this is nearly 400 years old. It's 2024, this was produced in 1632. Some things don't really change. Look at that butterfly. So my plan is to take some of these, maybe change it a bit, alter it, move around. I actually use Procreate on the iPad, so old history, modern technology, you can still move the two, and come up with some designs for some creepy crawlies. I'm thinking snails, I'm thinking caterpillars will really go well with this wool. Now this wool, I love it. It's Appleton's. A whole separate video on the history of this and how William Morris used it, etc, etc. It's more akin to this here, but it's great to stitch with crewel wool. Crewel wool sort of crewel work came after stump work, sort of in the 18th century rather than 17th century, but it's my favourite medium, and I think I can, well, I know I can come up with some designs I can get everyone doing. I can get my beginners classes doing, and I can do the odd video showing you how to do it on YouTube. So if you want to see where I go from a visit to a stately home, inspired by something that's 350 years old, coming up with patterns that are 400 years old and turning it into something more contemporary, be sure to follow, subscribe, like and subscribe. Give me a follow and see where I go, because I'll be putting some videos about the design process coming on. And I've been visiting other places in Nottingham and around don't even have to go that far to get this inspiration and see how other types of embroidery and other techniques can come to be really contemporary, and you can have a go at it as well, and how it, that direct link in my thought process is what I wanted to show you. So any comments, any questions, please put them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them and find out what people want to know more about with that history, but not making it too dry and too bookish, because that puts us all to sleep. So thank you if you've got this far, and I'll see you next time with some ideas for some caterpillars.